The Grand Rapids Public School Finance Committee meeting, Monday, June 28th at 5:30. And I believe that there are no public comment agendas and non-agenda items, so we can begin. Larry?
Great. Good evening, Reverend Matthias and Finance Committee members. Good to see you. Last Finance Committee of the fiscal year. So anyways, our first action item, as you can see, is our purchasing agenda. And I've projected it up here on the screen. If you want to follow along up there. A number of items on this purchasing agenda. A lot has to do with getting contracts, if you will, in place for the new fiscal year. Many of these instructional, general fund instructional equipment and supplies related to new purchases that by the time we get them ordered delivered to the district and get them processed in time for our late August start date for school. So tuition for my Kent for the last tuition payment for the most recent fiscal year. Blanket order modification for some repair equipment in the grounds area, and then another blanket modification. And then the support materials, our annual Business Plus license, which is due on August 1st. You can see sports medicine for next year from Spectrum Health, athletic insurance for next year, athletic officials through ref pay, all for next year. And then contract for We Are GR newsletter, $60,000 for staff and printing. And that came about via a proposal process. And then here's some instructional supplies. The first one, Kent Intermediate School District. That is when we transferred the special ed programs over to the ISD. We had been bequeathed a number of years ago money specific to the center-based actually Lincoln campus itself. We were named the trustee and the administrator of that trust, so we retained that responsibility. And when the ISD wants to spend that money, they just basically send us a request. It's wide open as long as it goes to Lincoln schools. So they made the expenditure of $374,596. This is just to reimburse them for that out of the trust, which is administered by us.
Do you mind if we just kind of stop?
Sure. No, yeah,
Because
absolutely.
otherwise
Absolutely.
we're going
Yeah,
to
absolutely, yeah.
trip over things, I think.
Absolutely.
You indicated that that you went with Stafford Printing, number 5, they had a contract for We Are GR newsletter, and then you went through the proposal process. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Well, as you have often asked about service contracts in particular, how often, if at all, do we quote them? And as you know, again, there is no board policy on that. There's no state requirement, but we are starting to do more and more of that for these larger contracts. So, especially as it relates to what's gone on the past year and the enhanced communication, enhanced costs of all those communications. The communication department, John Hemholt, put out an RFP for these services, and this was the organization that won the, if you will, the RFP process. So
Okay. I'm asking, did we also apply the Grand Rapids First policy?
we do, yep.
We did?
Yep, that
Okay.
does apply, yep, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Under Section 2, as I mentioned, the reimbursement on the Lincoln School Trust, some equity-driven leadership costs. Dr. Tammy Campbell the next year, about $80,000. The next several purchases are funded with ESSER dollars, and these are items primarily focused on learning loss, remediation, supplemental materials. These are all materials that need to be purchased now so that, as I mentioned earlier, they get delivered to the district. The curriculum department goes through a processing, gets everything separated and ready to be distributed to the buildings for the 21-22 school year, which begins in late August.
And I have a general question
Sure.
that relates to all of these. Are all of these purchases of learning materials, which I think are really important, have these gone through instructional council, or have they gone
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the whole
they have,
processes?
yep, they
Okay,
have.
so
And this is all part of, we've talked about the ESSER dollars and the ESSER 2 and 3 in particular. Again, the challenge we're having is that, again, at this point, as of today, 57% of the ESSER 2 and none of the ESSER 3 have been appropriated by the state, although, as you're probably aware, I think John sent an email out late last week, the House passed out a new school aid bill, which includes appropriating those ESSER 2 and 3 dollars. Governor supports that. It now goes to the Senate. They really haven't said one way or the other, although John said today we expect the Senate to pass that this week yet, which would get us a school aid bill, which would appropriate those dollars. Now, there are some, I've talked before, we've been going through a process really since last August of internal process that included the academic team and the facilities team and finance team and others to get those, first the ESSER 1 dollars, now ESSER 2 and 3. ESSER 2 and 3, again, approximately about $103 million. There's a process that we have to go through the ESSER 3 dollars in terms of, I'm going to call it like a public hearing to get input from the public. Problem is, as I mentioned, is that there is a timing issue here where we've got to get this stuff ordered to have them in-house in time. So we're going ahead to do this. We don't have all the, again, the dollars have not been appropriated. There is a 30-day window once the dollars are appropriated as to when this public hearing has to occur. I don't know if the bill passes, if that's the date or the time where the 30 days starts ticking. I just don't know, and there's not been guidance from MDE yet on that, even in terms of what this public hearing has to look like. So in the meantime, we have to order the stuff, get it in time. So this is consistent with, again, this came up from the Academic Council. They said this is what we need to do. This would fit, the ESSER 3, I mentioned this before, 20% of that $70 million has to be reserved for evidence-based, and you understand this too better than I do, obviously. Evidence-based, got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you know those, yeah. Evidence-based programs for learning loss remediation. These all fit into those categories as evidence-based. Got to order it now. I don't think when we go through the process, this will change. We just can't wait to have it in place in time. So there's a couple more of those things that are going on as it relates to some of the, we've talked about, and Long will talk about it a little bit later, about the additional roofing needs at Union and Ottawa Hills. We're also going to fund from ESSER $2. Actually, the ESSER $2 amount, we did just get approval on the ESSER 2, the $14.2 million, so we can spend those dollars. The rest of it, we have not been able to, as I mentioned, get approval yet, so we'll see. And it continues.
Just a quick point. I know
Yeah.
Dr. Flores' question is about, has this gone through academic achievement? I know it was important that years ago we made sure that kind of thing happened, so I'm glad that just the follow-up is good, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for us to approve buying something before they.
Exactly. And our plans right now is, depending on the timing of all this stuff, we're getting actually the whole, I think we talked about this a few months ago back in, it was mid-March, we had a whole brainstorming session to begin with for all these ESSER 2 and 3 dollars, and the smaller group that I talked about, we've had it in place since August. Took all those brainstorming ideas, prioritized them, put it into what I'm going to call an ESSER spending plan. It's a term we're going to use, which we have a draft. We're actually going to get that whole larger group together again right now, July 12th, to review this whole plan, not only areas that they had direct input, but also all the years, so they can make sure it's all consistent. And then that, we hope that'll be what I'm going to call the final plan that'll get to you, that will be exposed to the public for their input, suggestions, whatever the case may be. Still up in the air, stay tuned, okay? That's part of the juggling act we've been dealing with for especially ESSER 2 and $3. And as I've said before, MDE has just been overwhelmed because all these programs, all these ESSER buckets, which are now I think 8 or 9 of them, they're responsible for administering all of them. You know, different requirements, spending requirements, different reporting requirements. The CRF dollars we got last summer, that's the money we got up front. The ESSER dollars, again, we have to apply for that through an application process. They have to be reviewed by MDE, approved before we can actually spend. And we spend the dollars and file a reimbursement, like the title dollars, to get reimbursed. So we don't get that money up front. So that's why it's been challenging for MDE, obviously, and for all the business offices and all the school districts, especially us, where we get larger amounts and more programs to keep track of these things.
So Larry, just so that we understand, so we, if we approve this, they're going to be going back and doing public hearings on particular curriculums and so
I'm going to
forth.
call it a public hearing. It's phrased a little bit differently, but it's public hearing-like. We have to expose the spending plan
Okay.
to the public. I mean, it's all interested stakeholders, which basically, they talk with the public,
Okay.
obviously staff internally, you guys, teachers, administrators, business, community, nonprofit. I mean, so our plan would be, until we get further guidance from MDE, we're thinking a public hearing where all are invited to provide that input on the spending plan that we've drafted as an internal group.
And then hopefully the academic committee will forward the board some of those details of what that
Yeah.
planning is and
Yeah.
what the curriculums are and how it's going to all.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our plans, but like I said, we're kind of walking in an unknown territory right now, and figure worst case scenario, we do what we think is right, and if guidance later comes out and says we do it again or do it differently, whatever. But we're trying to stay out in front of this thing because, as I said, timing's very important. To get some of this stuff ordered, get construction contracts in place, and we know the challenges in the construction area with supplies and supply chain disruptions, and at the roofing situation, who knows when they can actually if we hire a contractor, when they can actually get the work done. So it's all very challenging in this environment.
Well, I want to compliment you because I understand, the complexity of what you're faced with, given, the regulations involved. And I'm just asking, that we make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's and make sure that we've gone through the process so that there are no criticisms.
Yes, very much so.
Because there's significant dollars being applied here.
Exactly, exactly. And then some other support materials, talk about this, the Schoology license renewal for the next academic year, which we are using in grades 6 through 12. Is that right, Tony? I get that Schoology platform?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the high school.
Yeah, high school. Yeah, thank you. Online monitoring system, which we've had GoGuard in place for a number of years. Again, the new 21-22 fiscal year lights. The next couple of our all licensing renewals of 2, 3, 4. We've had in place for a number of years. 5 is another device purchase to replace our aging and damaged equipment. Those are the Chromebooks for grades 2 through 12 through Dell Presidio, and then some fine arts classroom technology. Again, this is another ESSER 2 funding designation that we need to purchase now to have that in place in time for school to start. One of the things we focused on, I think I talked about this earlier, and it certainly came up at the board retreat a month or so ago, is some of the ESSER dollars, we're putting a little extra money into the fine arts and athletic programs, which, you know, historically have been kind of short shrifted, if you will, and that stuff. This is part of that specialized devices to improve our fine arts program. Mobile devices for Museum High School, that's through our XQ funding. Another device purchase for music production classrooms at Ottawa, Elgin, Riverside. Other student devices for Apple, PK1, $985,000 again. ESSER funds and the ECF funding potentially. That's the new bucket of dollars. I think I mentioned maybe at the board meeting, a new program has surfaced that goes into effect, I think, July 1st, that could be used for two things, for student broadband hotspot online access and student devices. So Craig is working on that right now in terms of the needs, so we may probably be able to purchase devices and hotspots from this bucket of dollars and reallocate where we have current ESSER dollars or gear funding, whatever, someplace else. So, Craig, and that application for the ECF you said is due when? So middle of August, and Craig's assessing that right now. Although there's some additional regulatory challenges that Craig is finding out in that program too. So we'll see.
When you say student devices, is that something that if a student has a device that they can use, a personal device, like a cell phone, is that something that we're able to manage through software, or is it?
No, the devices we're talking about this program would be Chromebooks or iPads. What devices we use, they have, the other requirement is for the student devices, they have to be allowed, right, to take the devices home, which we allow them to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And then a couple of bond projects, camera equipment upgrades at several of schools there from EPS. Some more digital media fine arts, high schools from Alpo, almost $200,000. That's from the bond technology fund. And then, as I mentioned, now that we're back in the classroom with some of the ESSER dollars, we're trying to upgrade our in-classroom technology. And this is part of it from bond funds at North Park, Montessori. We look to do more of that with the ESSER dollars. That's one area where Craig's finding some challenges in getting bids because of all the contractors are full up. So we've got several $1 billion, I think, of ESSER dollars right now in our plan to do that, but that may be an area where we just schedule it when they can do it and can get it done. So that is the nature of the purchasing agenda that I'd like for you to approve to go to the board. And actually, Ms. Schottke, this is set to go to the board of the 19th, but I wonder if we could bring it to the work session the 12th and have it approved then so we can get going on it. So if there's any other questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them.
And again, with some of the ESSER funds, it's allowing us to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
When we've been behind.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, these are
In terms of
these
technology
expenditures
and
we're
everything.
asking to approve. As I said earlier, we believe the ESSER dollars have maximum flexibility. It's not there's really not a big risk in ordering this. The money will be appropriated. We've believe this is entirely consistent with the requirements of the program, and again, with the academic team, it's all their hard work behind identifying the programs they think will work for our kids, and this comes from the academic team. So,
And for our public, it means that they can have confidence that GRPS is really
yeah,
stepping up its game, its ability to prepare students for the future.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and to catch them up from this
Yeah.
past year, yeah, which is the most important thing.
A motion for approval of the purchasing agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay.
Thank you. And the next item B, there's a blanket purchases, which we bring to the board, or this finance committee and the board, about this time every year. Again, blanket purchases are expected purchases throughout the year that we pay for on a monthly, on a regular basis. So instead of coming to the finance committee and a purchasing agenda every time we make a $25,000 purchase, we put it on here with an estimate of what the total amount is for the year, and that avoids having to come to the finance committee and the board every month or every other month, whatever the regular purchase would be. These are our best estimate. These are consistent with the budget that you approved, I guess, a week ago for next year. One thing I will point out, this is the last page of that blanket purchase. There are 4 items there at the bottom that we're in the process of bidding out. The snow removal, the custodial and general maintenance services, the contracted services we have for that, and then the interpretation and translation services. So the amounts in the proposed budget column are our best estimate of the approximate cost of those, but once the RFP process is complete and we've made the decision on who to engage, we'll bring that back to the board for your approval. And I believe that should all be done hopefully by the next finance committee meeting in July. So.
Okay, we will take a motion.
Motion to approve the blanket purchases for 21-22.
Support.
All right, all in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm mixing it up here. Wild meeting.
Great, thank you. And then a couple of donations that need your approval to move forward. The first being benches for Sigsbee Green Schoolyard. One of the neighbors, right, Long, has donated 5 benches. 875, total $4,375. We are recommending that this committee accept these donations, this donation. Are these in place or will be in place shortly? Yeah.
I'll motion for approval.
Support.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And the second donation is from Allied Electric. Allied Electric was the electrical contractor on our Ottawa Hills renovation, and they have graciously like to make a donation to $15,000 to be used for any other building needs or student needs at Ottawa Hills High School. So it's really pretty broad as long as it's focused on Ottawa Hills High School. And again, we recommend that this finance committee accept this donation and move it to the board for their approval.
A motion for approval.
Okay, all in favor, say C.
C.
Move on to the reports now. Let's pull up here. I've got up the dashboard report through 11 months. Again, if you look at the individual line items, and again, I do not have May of last year because we were still in, I'm gonna call it lockdown, and did not produce any internal financials at that point as our meetings were suspended. But you can see where we stand compared to the annual 2021 budget after Amendment 2. You can see that with 1 month to go overall, you look at the bottom line here, where we have total expenditures in the general fund of about $136 million versus a total budget of $169 million. So there is another $33 million to spend in the last month. By the time we close the books out and have the audit done, we may not spend all that money this year, may pick up a little bit in our fund balance, but other than that, since this reflects, the budget reflects our most recent Amendment 2, things are tracking as expected. The projected fund balance is what I showed you at Amendment 2, that's $10.8 million or 7.4%. And in terms of capital expenditures, again, that capital related, the grand total, so of the $175 million, we've spent $123.2 million through May, actually paid bills through that point in time. So we're tracking well from that perspective. And we have Lon will talk just a minute about the bond programs and where we're spending that money currently. Any questions on the financial statement? This will be July, the next couple of months, you will not see a financial statement because the new year is dependent on closing out this current year, which we don't do for a couple of months and as we work through it. So this will be the last interim financial statement we'll see.
Right.
Okay. The bond update for.
Good evening, Reverend Matias and the Finance Committee. Ottawa Hills, in 2 weeks we're going to do a 10-month warranty walk just to make sure that everything's good before they pretty much leave the site. Southwest, we're still wrapping up on some of the items from the 10th-month warranty walk from a month ago, and the project closeout is ongoing. We do, from the waterproofing that they did a month ago, there were some leaks still, so we're still working with the architect and trying to figure out what the cause of that is. At Union, we're about 79% done, 23 out of 29 months, and we're still going to be targeted to complete in December of 2021. Contractors are in Unit F and Unit G in the upstairs classrooms, and all of the center portion of the first floor, which includes the cafeteria, media center, and the corridor in between. All the construction on the north wall has been going very well, and in a few weeks we'll know if we're going to be ahead of schedule or not. Currently, we're still expected to get the 7 southern classrooms, and the 2 on the north just depends on how they look in a couple weeks to start in the fall. Furniture is expected to arrive in a couple weeks as well for the whole entire school, so we've been working really hard on moving out all the furniture in the classrooms and in the offices. Secured entries, we're full speed ahead in construction right now. All the demolition is complete, and the schools requiring office relocations have all been framed out. Once they get inspected by the city, we'll start drywalling them and putting them back together. The schools, again, are Congress, Mulek, Shawmut, Kenosha, and North Park. Innovation Central, design is still underway. They're supposed to have a schematic design and hopefully some costs by mid-July, so we can start seeing where we are with the budget of that project and what we can include and start negotiating. That's all I have for now. If there's any questions.
You guys are pretty awesome, especially with how construction has been, and so it's quite amazing. Now that wall, with all the rain that we got, how did we fare?
It's mostly on the roof. So far, we've it's been okay. We have people come, or some of our maintenance guys checking it out 3 times a week at least, so we're keeping an eye on that.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Long. And then item 3 in our reports is COVID-19 funds update, and I kind of gave you that already. There's not much more to say about that. Just stay tuned, and our focus, as I said, has been on the ESSER 2 and 3 and getting those allocated and get moving on that.